Good morning, Year 10. So this is your anthology for Edexcel. This is the exam board that we are following for English language. Now, we have a number of extracts from different texts that we're going to look through, and we're starting with H is for hawk. You have a copy of this in files, so you should be able to see a close-up. I'm just going to read it through here because my Wi-Fi has been glitching terribly, so it might be that Teams doesn't work this morning for us. So, from H is for Hawk, Helen MacDonald. When MacDonald's father died suddenly of a heart attack, MacDonald was devastated. An experienced falconer, she adopted a goshawk to distract her from her grief. In this extract, MacDonald meets her hawk for the first time. "We'll check the ring numbers against the Article 10s, he explained, pulling a sheaf of yellow paper from the rucksack and unfolding two of the official forms that accompany captive-bred rare birds throughout their lives. Don't want you going home with the wrong bird. We noted the numbers. We stared down at the boxes, at their parcel tape handles, their doors of thin plywood and hinges of carefully tied string. Then he knelt on the concrete, untied a hinge on the smaller box, and squinted into its dark interior. A sudden thump of feathered shoulders onto the box, and the box shook as if someone had punched it hard from within. She's got her hood off, he said, and frowned. That light leather hood was to keep the hawk from fearful sights, like us. Another hinge untied, concentration, infinite caution, daylight irrigating the box, scratching talons, another thump, and another thump. The air turned syrupy, slow, flecked with dust, the last few seconds before a battle. And, with the last bow pulled free, he reached inside, and amidst the whirring, chaotic clatter of wings and feet and talons, and a high-pitched twittering, and it's all happening at once, the man pulls an enormous, enormous hawk out of the box, and in a strange coincidence of world and deed, a great flood of sunlight drenches us, and everything is brilliance and fury. The hawk's wings, barred and beating, the sharp fingers of her dark-tipped primaries cutting the air, her feathers raised like the scattering quills of a fretful porpentine. Two enormous eyes. My heart jumps sideways. She is a conjuring trick, a reptile, a fallen angel, a griffin from the pages of an illuminated bestiary, something bright and distant like gold falling through water, a broken marionette of wings, legs, and light-splashed feathers. She is wearing jessies, and the man holds them. For one awful long moment, she is hanging head downwards, wings open, like a turkey in a butcher's shop, only her head is turned right way up, and she is seeing more than she has ever seen before in her whole short life. Her world was an aviary, no larger than a living room. Then it was the box. But now it is this, and she can see everything. The point source glitter on the waves, the diving cormorant 100 yards out, pigment flakes under wax on the line of parked cars, far hills and heather on them, and miles of sky where the sun spreads on dust and water, and illegible things moving in it that are white scraps of gulls. Everything startling and new-stamped on her entirely astonished brain. Through all this, the man was perfectly calm. He gathered up the hawk in one practised movement, folding her wings, anchoring her broad feathered back against his chest, gripping her scaled yellow legs in one hand. "Let's get that hood back on," he said tautly. There was concern in his face. It was born of care. This hawk had been hatched in an incubator and had broken from the frail bluish eggshell into a humid perspex box, and for the first few days of her life, this man had fed her with scraps of meat held in a pair of tweezers, waiting patiently for the lump and fluffy chick to notice her food and eat, her new neck wobbling with the effort of keeping her head in the air. All at once I loved this man, and fiercely. I grabbed the hood from the box and turned to the hawk. Her beak was open, her hackles raised. Her wild eyes were the colour of sun on white paper. and they stared because the whole world had fallen into them at once. 1, 2, 3. I tucked the hood over her head. There was a brief intimation of a thin, angular skull under her feathers, and of an alien brain fizzing and fusing with terror. Then I drew the braces closed. We checked the ring numbers against the form. It was the wrong bird. This was the younger one, the smaller one. This was not my hawk. Oh. So we put her back and opened the other box, which was meant to hold the larger, older bird, and dear God it did. Everything about this second hawk was different. She came out like a Victorian melodrama, a sort of mad woman in the attic. She was smokier and darker, and much, much bigger. And instead of twittering, she wailed, great awful gouts of sound like a thing in pain, and the sound was unbearable. This is my hawk, I was telling myself, and it was all I could do to breathe. She too was bareheaded, and I grabbed the hood from the box as before. But as I brought it up to her face, I looked into her eyes and saw something blank and crazy in her stare. Some madness in a distant country. I didn't recognise her. This isn't my hawk. The hood was on, the ring numbers checked, the bird back in the box, the yellow form folded, the money exchanged, and all I could think was, but this isn't my hawk. Slow panic. I knew what I had to say, and it was a monstrous breach of etiquette. This is really awkward, I began, but I really like the first one. Do you think there's any chance I could take that one instead? I tailed off. His eyebrows were raised. I started again, saying stupider things. I'm sure the other falconer would like the larger bird. She's more beautiful than the first one, isn't she? I know this is out of order, but could I? Would it be all right, do you think? And on and on. A desperate, crazy barrage of incoherent appeals. I'm sure nothing I said persuaded him more than the look on my face as I said it. A tall, white-faced woman with wind-wrecked hair and exhausted eyes was pleading with him on a quayside, hands held out as if she was in a seaside production of Medea. Looking at me, he must have sensed that my stuttered request wasn't a simple one, that there was something behind it that was very important. There was a moment of total silence.